Hello there, Taylor Ellwood here with Magical Experiments, and today I thought I would do a special live broadcast here on Magical Experiments. And part of this came about because I was having a conversation with Bara about, and hopefully I said your name correctly, Bara. I apologize if I got it wrong, but either way, we were talking about banishment and talking about the fact that banishment is overused in Western magic. And so what I want to talk about now in regards to banishment is why it's overused and what the issues are around banishment and what we can, and at the same time I do want to speak to when banishment is appropriate, because believe it or not, there are times when banishment is appropriate, but we need to understand the context. So the thing I said to Bara the other day was that my feeling on it is that banishment reinforces artificial distinctions made between the sacred and profane and disempowers the magical work. That's my feeling on why, when it's overused. And really this comes down to the fact that when you crack open a lot of books on Western magic, one of the things you're going to see is, banish with laughter, or do banishments after this, or do banishments after that. And, you know, this comes about because the authors were probably very well meaning. They probably wanted to, you know, say, hey, you got to do banishments in order to protect yourself or whatever else, but it also comes about because of this artificial distinction between the sacred and profane, and really because there is a profound disconnect between the metaphysical and the physical in Western occult practices. We've been talking about this a little bit in the group, and it boils down to really our Christian heritage, if you will. Okay, now I'm not a Christian, but the fact of the matter is, if you grew up in the West, whether the U.S. or Europe or wherever, to some degree or another, you have been influenced by Christianity. Even if it's just to say that you can't stand the religion, fair enough. It still has played a pivotal role in our lives to some degree or another, and it has had its effect on Western occult practices, and we see that with the disconnect that occurs with the body, because most people are not comfortable in the West with their bodies. It's just the simple fact of the matter. I mean, the one book I wrote, Inner Alchemy, I ended up writing about working at one point, like with your poop, and like with defecation and things like that. And it was interesting. The other day, I saw this person's response about a review about it, about how, and it basically boiled down to the fact that they didn't like that I talked about that. They thought that was an uncomfortable thing. But you know what? Pooping's a natural part of our body. In fact, pooping, to tie into the scene of what we're going here with, is actually a natural form of banishment. Amazing that, yeah. We're going to come back to that later. But if people are that uncomfortable with their own, with a body function such as defecating or passing waste or farting or whatever you want to call it, or pooping, think about how uncomfortable they are in general with their bodies, and by extent also even with their spiritual work. Because if you think about it, when you're creating that much of a distinction between the spirit and the physical world, you're taking that discomfort and that disconnection into all levels of your work. It's not just going into your relationship with your body, it's also going into your relationship with spirit. So we go and we do this magical ritual for whatever we want to result and everything else, and or we want to commune with the spirits and do planetary magic work, or whatever the reason is we're doing it. Okay, we put on our ceremonial robes, we grab our wands. Yeah, I know it's a pen, folks, but still, I'm gonna call it a wand, and you'll just accept that. We do all this work, and we hit that state of gnosis, or whatever it is we want to call it, and afterwards we go and we banish. What are we really doing? We are disconnecting from the work that we have just done. We are severing our connection with the spirit world, and for that matter, our connection to manifesting it and embodying it within ourselves. We are losing out on a primal, fundamental aspect of ourselves. And we're doing this because we're told, well, you got to banish because, you know, if you leave those energies there, they're going to contaminate the environment, or they're going to pollute your mind, or you're not going to get your result, or any of the other reasons that people like to spout out about why you should banish. And I disagree with that, okay? Plainly and simply, I absolutely disagree. I ran enough experiments back when I was a young magician. God, I sound like an old fart, even though I'm not. But you get the point. The point is that, you know, back in the day when I was in my early to mid 20s, I did a bunch of experiments around this stuff to see. Okay, so 20 years ago now, and tried different things with banishment, and the benefit, the thing that I came away with was that when I banished, it made the magic less effective, and when I didn't banish, it made the magic more effective. And I began to think, well, why is that? Why is it that when I banish, it makes it less effective? And the conclusion that I came to then is that, well, when you're banishing, you're essentially saying to the spirits that you worked with, to the powers that be, everything else, that you really don't want what you said you wanted. Oh, here, I did all this work, and by the way, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull out my eraser and erase all of it and get rid of it. I don't really want it. Take it away. Don't leave it in there. Okay, well, if that's the case, we've got a problem then, right? Houston, we have a problem because you're telling us one thing, but on the other hand, you're doing the exact opposite. And that's really where I think people have a fundamental misunderstanding about banishment and its role. If I'm banishing something, I am getting rid of it. I am expelling it. It no longer belongs. So if I'm doing a magical working and afterwards I banish, what am I doing? I'm getting rid of the very magic that I ended up working. But Taylor, if I do that, if I don't banish, I'm going to be in danger. That's what these various occult authorities tell me, etc., etc. No, and Bar, I hope I got your name right. You tell me if I say your name right, or if I'm saying it wrong, please feel free to correct me. But anyway, you are essentially, what you are doing is, yes, you're saying that you're afraid of the powers that you've called upon. You've got it exactly right, on the nose, or, you know, you've hit the nail on the head, or whatever other saying we want to use, but it's true. When we're saying that we are afraid of the powers that we've connected with. Do you want to know the number one reason why people end up having the horror stories they have around spirits? It's because if I've summoned a spirit and I have fear at all, the spirit's going to sense that, and spirits respond and react to what we bring in. You know, we have this idea. Okay, great. I'm glad to hear that. That's very good to know. We have this thing where we're calling forth these spirits and we're asking them to come into our lives and to help manifest change. And what we fail to realize is that we're not just asking them to come with everything they're bringing, it's that we're also coming there too, and we're meeting them halfway, and we're basically bringing with us all of our baggage and everything else. It's just like a regular relationship, right? You go and you hook up with somebody, and you bring your baggage, and you bring all the fun stuff too, and hopefully the fun stuff outweighs the baggage. Well, you know, you're going and you're working with these spirits, and you're coming into this with fear or whatever else, they're going to respond to that. And when you go and you banish, what are you doing? You're reinforcing that. This is why I don't advocate, incidentally, trying to compel spirits to do things for you. Like, you know, like the classic grimoire thing of, okay, I'm going to call on the angels, and then they're going to lay the smack on the demons, and the demons are going to do what I want them to do. That just creates a lot of resentment. No one likes coercive relationships unless, of course, they've chosen that kind of a relationship. And then it's not really coercive, is it? It's consensual coercion. Okay, fair enough. We'll call it that. But no one likes being coerced against their will, and the same thing applies with spirits. So when we look at this context of banishment, and we look at what we're really saying, we're saying, okay, I don't want this. So, yeah, I've done this ritual work and now go away. Please go away. Don't get near me or whatever else. We're basically asking to be rejected. And so it's an important thing for us to consider that if we don't want to reject the changes that we want in our lives, that we use banishment very carefully and wisely, that we understand when to use it. And we're going to get to that in a little bit. But that we also understand that in magical work, we are embodying what we work with. Like when I work with a spirit, it is not just that I'm working with some sky daddy up in the cloud, or some earth mama, or some demon sister and brother, or whatever. Okay? It's that I am forging a connection with them, and I am embodying them within me, even as I am evoking them. The interesting thing about invocation and evocation, I know I'm kind of going all over the place here, folks, but this is totally worth it. The interesting thing about invocation and evocation is they're really just flip sides of the same operation. You know, when you're invoking, you're bringing in. When you're evoking, you're sending out. And it's possible to do both at the same time, believe it or not. Most people just don't do it that way. And of course, you know by now, I am not most people. I do things my own way. But it ties back to this thing of embodiment. Well, if we have an uncomfortable relationship with our body, and we don't know how to embody the changes in our lives, and incidentally, this is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't get their magic to work so well, then we have a fundamental problem. And that problem is that we have not chosen to truly embed it within ourselves and to make it part of who and what we are so that it can manifest out into the world around us. So when I do magical work, I'm doing magical work inwardly and outwardly. I'm manifesting it outward toward the result I want to manifest, but I'm also manifesting it inwardly within my body, within my identity. And your body is one of the most potent magical tools you have. In fact, it is the most potent magical tool you have, because your body is the miracle of manifestation in and of itself. This is the occult secret that so many people miss out on. Your body is the realization and materialization of life, and it is a direct gateway for the energies that you work with. Now, do you want to work with those energies carefully? Yes, you do. I'm not saying go and willy-nilly do stuff. I mean, there are definitely steps and processes and things like that to consider, and that we're not going to get into all that here. You know, I'll definitely I'm working on a class that I'll be going into some of this stuff in more depth. But I wanted to cover this topic because of the fact that we had a conversation, Bara and I, about the banishment, and I wanted to really tie that into what I had shared a couple days ago. Now let's get back to banishment, speaking of which. So, I did say there are times where banishment is useful, and there are. I want you to think about banishment, and this will seem crude, but I'm going to go with it anyway. I want you to think about banishment in relationship to your physical waste, right? Like when you poop or whatever else, or you pee, what are you doing? You're getting rid of the things that don't belong in your body. You're getting rid of the things that have, you know, they serve their purpose, they passed on their nutrients, and now they need to go, because if they stay in your body's going to become unhealthy. Well, it's the same thing with banishment. When we should do a banishment is when we need to do it for one of two reasons. A, we've got hostile forces incoming, like some person, some flaccid magician who decides he's going to send demons after me because he thinks I'm trying to mac on his girl even though I'm just writing a newsletter. That's a good example right there. Right? Not that I've felt any of those demons, but if I did feel those demons, if they did come and attack me or whatever, well, honestly, I'd just make them my friends. But regardless, I would just go and I could do a banishment then, right? Because there are things that don't belong. And in fact, when I do my sphere of artwork each and every day, what am I doing? I am essentially creating a very specific environment where I'm excluding the things that don't belong, i.e. banishing them, and I'm including the things that do belong. So think about that for a moment. Banishment, when done right, is really serving to exclude the things that don't belong and keep the things in. If it's done, if it's part of an operation that's done holistically, everything else is kept in. So with the sphere of art, when I'm doing my chants and I'm going into the directions and I'm invoking the archangels and the planetary and elemental energies and all that other fun stuff, I'm also at the same time clearing out the space of anything that doesn't belong. In my case, that's usually the psychic garbage of the day. Like I spent the day talking to people on the phone, hearing them grape and whine about their software. I want that out of my space, right? So that I can do the important work, the writing and the videos and the magical work and connecting with you guys, because you're the people I want to be taking care of and serving. So that's where that banishment comes into play. It's getting rid of the things that don't belong. It's passing on that waste, and it's the same thing with like in the case where someone's sending hostile forces incoming. Okay, they're coming in, then do a banishment working at that point. And you can do it with very specific filters in mind. I mean, that's where you look at the structure of your magical work and you see how you set it up. And you set it up in such a way that you're calling in the forces that you want to work with, excluding the forces that don't belong. And what you're kept with as a result is this very specific magical space/time in which you work your magic in. It's as simple as that. And yet it is as complex as that, because you really do want to consider carefully, well, what am I inviting in and what am I keeping out? And then as my mentor, R.J. Stewart's mentor, William G. Gray, used to say, you can also go and pass your bowels, and that is a profound act of magic in of itself. He brought this up in a couple different books, and he's incidentally someone I would recommend any of you who are watching this to read. Check out, Magical Ritual Methods or Inner Traditions of Magic. He's a bit of a dense read, okay? I'm going to be very upfront about that. He was writing in the 1970s and 80s, and he's a crabby old English dude, so you're going to totally feel that off of him. But it is good work, it is profound work, and I loved that analogy or the metaphor of banishment that he used. Like, okay, you're going to the bathroom and you're getting rid of the waste. Well, that's exactly what banishment is. You're getting rid of that which does not belong. So banishment has its place in magic. It's just that when you're doing magic all the time and you're doing banishment after every single frickin' ritual, and you're doing it because you think, oh, well, I got to get rid of everything I just worked with, that's where the overuse comes into play, and that's where it has not been portrayed accurately in most of the text out there. A lot of these, this is where we have to use critical thinking and say, okay, I'm reading this book by this author, and I have to question carefully what he or she is saying and test it for myself. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't do that. I mean, this is why I even say, with my own books, don't just accept my word wholesale. Read the books. You can disagree with me if you want. You're probably going to disagree. I mean, honestly, I welcome disagreement. I might agree to disagree with you on whatever you disagree about, but the fact of the matter is, it shows you're thinking for yourself, and that's what I want you folks to be doing. I want you to be thinking for yourselves. I want you to be discovering for yourselves what works for you. Even with this video, if you've watched this, don't believe me, fair enough, test what I've said. Do banishments after every working for a week. And then next week, do your workings and don't do banishments, and compare and contrast the experience that you feel magically, physically, etc., and look at the results. That'll tell you for sure whether or not I'm talking out of my ass, or if I actually am talking straightforward with you and telling you something that I've discovered. And if you discover that I'm wrong, fair enough. If you discover I'm right, fair enough. Or if you discover there's a mix in between of all those, fair enough. It's like I always say, challenge authority. So don't even take my word for it. Discover it for yourself, because the best way for you to figure out for yourself what works or what doesn't work is to have the experiences. And this is why I talk about embodying that experience and bringing that experience into your body in and of itself, because as I said, your body is the most potent magical tool you have. When you are truly in tune with your body and with the way that your body connects with the ki and energy and whatever else of life, then you are able to do a magical working and feel those experiences out, and you're also able to filter and do everything else accordingly because you've learned to tap into those most potent of tools. So really, take what I've said about banishment and test it yourself. That's my homework for you. For the next week, if you feel like it, banish after every single working that you've done. The week after that, don't banish. Or if you want to do it this way, do it one day where you banish after everything you've done, and then the next day. If you don't want to do it for 2 weeks, but try it out and see what you notice. See if you notice the difference, because that's the best way for you to determine what works or what doesn't work. And as with anything else, with any books or anything else you read, keep challenging and discovering for yourself, because that's how you're going to become a better magician, and it's how you will grow as a person as well. All right, folks, that's it for today. I just wanted to share this with you, and thank you guys so much for being on, especially for you, Bara. I really appreciated it, and your wonderful, funny commentary. And as always, take care, folks.